the AI pathfinding. So again, we have our waypoint, and you're either saying you're going to use it or not use it, or use the pathfinding system. You can use neither, and you can say that this is only intended for the AI behaviors up above here. And when a player triggers it, or if you have it connected to a player, it'll automatically just provide that information to it. But if you do a pathfinding system, say for instance I enable this, I don't want pathfinding points, I just want to use the grid. The grid ID means that it is saying if this is grid ID 0, then you can say that the ID for the player is 0, 1, 2, or 3. Then you're actually pointing which grid can be used for which player. Reason for that is that you may have a grid that is a 10 by 10 grid for the user player, and then you may have a grid that's a 20 or 30 by 30 grid for an enemy character. So you can set up each grid system on top of each other, and then each of the characters will behave accordingly to which pathfinding grid they're set to. Alright, now if we enable this one, what we're going to look at is a move by pathfinding only, which just simply locks it in so that if you have controls, you're saying you don't want to be able to use controls for it. Dynamic routes means that if anything changes, an object moves into the pathfinding grid and no longer allows it to go there, it'll just update the pathfinding position and move it to a different spot if it's available. On the on-stop block path, again, this means now if I enable this one and you get to a point, it's going to say, well, there is an option. I'm going to wait until the object in front of me moves. For instance, if a door opens and closes, then you want to stop it until it becomes available and then continue moving. And then go to random path points. If you just want the player to start off by moving around the scene, then you can just say go to random path points on it. Alright, and if it's AI character, typically move by pathfinding only is the option that you want to have for it. Alright, so that's going to be the AI pathfinding. Let's go ahead and jump through the other three right here. The AI pathfinding options. So the options are going to allow you to say whether or not the lock to reach. This is going to be that, again, when your player, if you have an AI player moving around in the scene and he chooses a point, he's going to stay going that direction until you finally get there. Which means even if something else comes in his trigger box, it's not going to bother him until he gets there, and then he's going to look to receive new instructions. Alright, if you're using a manual control, so you're using your own player but moving on a pathing system, you can say that when you click, it'll re-change the direction for you during the middle of a move. Same thing for joystick. If you're using it, you can override it. And then no moving if not walkable. If you move up against a wall, instead of trying to get to the other side, you're just simply saying you can't get there, so just stay in an idle state. Alright, and then we have the options for Pathfinding Seeker. The seeker being the actual object who is moving based on the pathing. You can do a snap to grid, and currently I believe the only option is snap to grid. So when you're clicking on a pathfinding, it's going to look for the grid points and move you to those points. The delay between nodes is actually kind of fun because it gives a sense like the player's thinking. Every time it gets, so if I went from this node 1 to node 2, I'm going to go to it, and there's going to be a delay between nodes. So it's just simply saying that you're going to get to a spot, stop, and then go to the next one, stop, and go to the next one, stop. Now there's two right here. It's probably just mislabel on it. So one of them is probably going to be the start and end on the nodes. And then there's a end early. That means that if like where my cursor is, if my player is walking down this line, end early means the radius out from here. If I get to here, if my distance is less than, we'll say, if it's 2 or 3 or 4, it'd be out to here. My player would actually get to here and pick the next point and start curving to that next point going around. Alright, and then you have the rotate to follow path, so you can actually rotate the tile itself so that it would follow around, more for like a top-down game. And then target repath time. Each time, whenever the player moves, how often do you want the player to retarget where the player moving to? For instance, if you wanted the character to run at you, um, and he's going to start running at you, but you wanted him to not pick a new path for, say, 2 seconds, I might want it to be like 2 or 3 seconds out. So he's going to run past you, which gives you a chance to move around him. And then if it was a shooting game where you're shooting the backside of him, and then after 3 seconds, he turns back around to chase you again. So this is going to be the target repath time there. Alright, and then the last part here, just a simple overview on the path view. This is more just for the visual side. You can say if you want to actually use it, you can enable the path view on the click. And the path view is actually a line render, so when you click, it'll draw a visual path to the location. You can have it also that wherever your mouse moves, if you're hovering over a spot, you can have it where it updates to that location so you can see where the player is going to go. A start end distance, the thickness of it, and then the depth of it, and then your color. And because we've got it on here, we'll go ahead and do let's do like a grayish tone color, and we'll do a little bit of a alpha on it. Alright, so that'll get us all set up for our pathing system. We've walked our way through all the other parts of it, waypoints and actions and states and ranges. This is this basic setup for your AI behavior component to the player. So anytime you can actually, the typical way, and we'll be putting out some of these as examples, it'll be just a block, and it'll just have the full set of options for how the player, whether it's a boss player, whether it's an NPC, whether it's a little minion character, or one who just walks back and forth, each of those can be a separate AI component, and then you can connect those to any of the players that you want so that you can use that as the behavior for them.